Nikola Jokic just received a massive contract offer outside the NBA, and NBA owners are reportedly not happy about it. A European club is making a serious push to bring the three-time MVP overseas, and the money they're putting on the table has caught everyone's attention. Let's get into it. It started with a podcast, not a press conference, not a league memo. A podcast called Euro Insiders, where a Greek businessman decided to say out loud what he'd apparently already tried to do in private. Dimitrios Giannakopoulos owns Panathinaikos, one of the biggest basketball clubs in Europe. And on that podcast, he told the hosts he wasn't just a fan of Nikola Jokic. He'd gone after him. For real. Giannakopoulos said he made a proposal to the Denver Nuggets to buy Nikola Jokic out of the final season of his current NBA contract, and believes he can sign Jokic away next summer. He knew exactly how that was going to sound. People are going to say, okay, now he's joking. Giannakopoulos told the podcast, "I did make a very serious proposal this year, both to his team and to him. I got a rejection. Let that sit for a second. A EuroLeague owner tried to buy out an active three-time MVP's NBA contract. Not tamper in whispers, not float a hypothetical." He says he called Denver directly, and the Nuggets didn't deliberate. They didn't run it up a chain of command for weeks. According to Giannakopoulos himself, the answer came back in seconds. It took a few seconds for the Nuggets to say, who, Greece, where, what, buy. Giannakopoulos said, "But let's wait until next year." That's not a rejection, that's the front office laughing him off the phone. Now here's why owners around the league actually paid attention to this, instead of brushing it off as noise. This wasn't Giannakopoulos' first swing at a Denver roster player. Giannakopoulos tried to lure veteran NBA center Jonas Valanciunas from the Nuggets last summer, and convinced some that a deal was in the works, leading to confusion, before Valanciunas ultimately played out the season in Denver. That attempt actually worked out for him eventually. Valanciunas left the Nuggets this summer for Lithuanian EuroLeague powerhouse Žalgiris Kaunas. So when the same owner said Jokic is next, people in league circles didn't just dismiss it as fantasy. He'd pulled a player out of Denver before. Maybe not the MVP, but a rotation center. And he'd done it by making the exact kind of aggressive money move that just got aimed at Jokic. Jokic's own position on all of this has been consistent and blunt. He said flatly that Denver is where he intends to stay. Following the end of Denver's season, he told reporters, "I still want to be a Nugget forever." That's not a hedge. That's not diplomatic athlete speak designed to keep options open. That's a guy shutting the door before anyone even asked the follow-up question. But here's the tension that made this story catch fire across NBA media and inside front offices. Jokic hasn't actually signed the extension that would lock all of that in. He's eligible. He's been eligible for over a year now. And he keeps saying no, not because he wants out, but because waiting is worth more money. He became eligible to sign a 4-year, $278 million max extension in June, but has declined to commit, stating that his idea and desire is to stay in Denver for the rest of his career, but that he plans to wait to sign an extension for financial reasons. That gap between "I want to stay forever" and "I haven't signed anything yet" is exactly the crack Giannakopoulos is trying to wedge himself into. And it's why NBA insiders didn't just laugh this off as a EuroLeague owner being loud on a podcast. Because for one more season, on paper, Jokic is a Nugget with an expiring contract and a player option standing between him and open free agency. Jokic has 2 seasons and $121.8 million left on his current contract. But the second season is a player option, giving him the freedom to enter unrestricted free agency next summer. A player option, not a lock. A door that opens if Jokic decides to walk through it. That's the sentence that turned a EuroLeague owner's podcast rant into a real conversation across NBA front offices. Because technically, for one summer, Nikola Jokic could become a free man on the open market. And there's a billionaire in Athens who's already told the world, on record, that he'll be waiting with a checkbook. Denver's front office wasn't shaken by it publicly. But that fast, dismissive answer, who, Greece, where, what, buy, tells you they took the call seriously enough to want it over immediately. You don't hang up that fast on something you think is a total non-issue. You hang up that fast on something you want to make disappear before it becomes a headline. It became a headline anyway. Within hours, the story was everywhere. ESPN, Yahoo, Bleacher Report, every Nuggets beat writer in Denver, and the reaction split almost instantly into 2 camps. One camp treated it as the funniest off-season story of the summer, an owner tilting at windmills. The other camp, and this is the camp that included actual league executives, treated it as a preview of exactly the kind of fight the NBA is going to have. on its hands the moment Jokic's option year actually arrives. Because here's the thing nobody could ignore. Giannakopoulos didn't say he'd try again if the price was right. He said he's going to try again, period. He believes he can sign Jokic away next summer regardless of how loudly Denver hangs up the phone this time around. That's the setup. A three-time MVP with 1 year of certainty left on his deal. A European owner publicly vowing to come back with more money and more pressure. And a Denver front office that thought this was closed until it wasn't. So who exactly is the man trying to pull this off? Because it turns out this isn't his first rodeo, and it's not even close to the strangest thing he's done in a basketball arena. To understand why anyone in the NBA took this seriously at all, you have to understand who Dimitrios Giannakopoulos actually is. Because he's not some random rich guy who watched a Nuggets playoff game and got carried away. He's a pharmaceutical billionaire who owns one of the most decorated basketball clubs on the planet. Panathinaikos isn't a small market vanity project. It's a EuroLeague institution with championship pedigree, the kind of club that's had Rick Pitino patrol its sideline. Panathinaikos also has a history of bringing in big names, and even had Rick Pitino as their head coach for a period of time. And Giannakopoulos doesn't run that club quietly. He runs it like he's still on the court himself. In the same podcast appearance where he detailed the Jokic offer, he made it clear this isn't a passing whim. Jokic has apparently occupied real estate in his head for years. There is one player who remains a dream of mine, whom I haven't signed yet, but I will sign next year, Giannakopoulos said. It's Jokic, the best player in the world. Don't laugh at all. If I don't sign Jokic, I'm not going anywhere. He wasn't finished there either. He wanted people to know the money conversation had actually happened, with actual representation on the other side of the table. The Panathinaikos owner even went as far as to confirm that he held direct conversations with Jokic's agent Misko Raznadovic about buying the Nuggets center out of the final year of his contract. That's a real name, a real agent, a real conversation, not a fantasy draft pitch shouted into a microphone. Now, here's where this gets a little wild, and it's part of why NBA people reacted the way they did instead of shrugging it off. Giannakopoulos is not exactly known around European basketball for measured behavior. He's currently serving a suspension from his own sports arenas. The Greek pharmaceutical giant was recently banned from all Greek basketball arenas for a year and was fined 50,000 euros following statements he made during the Greek Basketball League finals, in addition to a previous 7-month ban for similar incidents posted to his Instagram stories earlier in the series. That's back-to-back bans in the same season. And it's not the first time his temper has made headlines that had nothing to do with a scoreboard. Years earlier, he reportedly led a team of bodyguards into the offices of a Greek publication, where he threatened employees over comments on the website that he considered inaccurate. So when this man says he's serious about spending real money to pull an NBA MVP out of the league, people don't file that away as harmless bluster. They file it away as, this guy actually does the things he says he's going to do, whether the rest of the basketball world thinks it's reasonable or not. That history is exactly why the Valanciunas situation mattered so much in this story. It wasn't a one-off, it was proof of concept. This isn't the first time Giannakopoulos attempted to buy a player away from the Nuggets. The year before, he attempted to sign center Jonas Valanciunas after Denver acquired him in a trade with the Sacramento Kings, offering to buy out the final 2 years and $20 million remaining on Valanciunas' NBA contract. Valanciunas said no that time and finished the season in Denver, but the pattern was set. And this offseason, Valanciunas left Denver anyway, for a different EuroLeague giant, which meant Giannakopoulos had just watched a rival European club successfully pull a player straight out of the Nuggets locker room, using exactly the kind of contract buyout logic he tried first. If it worked once, in his mind, why wouldn't it work again, with a bigger name and a bigger check? On the other side of this story is a guy whose entire basketball identity was built on being written off. Nikola Jokic wasn't a lottery pick, wasn't a can't-miss prospect flown in with the scouting department's full backing. Nikola Jokic was selected with the 41st overall pick by the Denver Nuggets in the second round of the 2014 NBA draft. Before that, Jokic began his professional career with the Serbian team Megabasket in 2012 and played there for 2 seasons before declaring for the NBA draft. That's the same European basketball ecosystem Giannakopoulos is trying to pull him back into. Jokic didn't come out of nowhere into the NBA. He came out of exactly the kind of regional league Panathinaikos and its rivals dominate, which is part of what makes the pitch almost logical on paper, even if the money doesn't remotely add up. Jokic already knows that world. He grew up in it, but everything since has pointed him permanently toward Denver. He's been named a 7-time NBA All-Star and the NBA's most valuable player for 2021, 2022, and 2024, and he's the only MVP in NBA history who was selected in the second round of the Common Era. He's also the only NBA player to win both Finals MVP and regular season MVP, who was drafted outside the top 15 picks in the draft. That's a resume built entirely inside the NBA, not a resume that suggests a guy itching to go find something better back in Europe. So you've got two men on opposite ends of this story. One built an empire in pharmaceuticals and basketball ownership, known across 2 continents for chasing what he wants regardless of how it looks. The other built himself from a 41st overall afterthought into the best player alive, and has said over and over that he's not going anywhere. That collision is the whole story, and it's why when the numbers involved actually got laid out, what Jokic is owed, what he's turning down, and what it would take to actually pry him loose, the conversation only got louder. Here's where this story stops being about ego and starts being about arithmetic, because the money involved is the entire reason nobody in Denver blinked twice at Giannakopoulos' offer. Jokic is not some underpaid star looking for a way out of a bad deal. He signed the richest contract in NBA history back in the summer of 2022, a deal that runs deep into this decade. Nikola Jokic signed a 5-year, $276,122,630 contract with the Denver Nuggets, with an average annual salary of $55,224,526. As it stands right now, in the 2026-27 season, Jokic will earn a base salary of $59,033,114. That's before he signed a single dollar of anything new. That's just what's already guaranteed to him for showing up and playing center for Denver next season. And that's exactly the part that makes the European offer look almost absurd once you put the actual figures side by side. Considering Jokic still has more than $120 million left on his current deal with the Nuggets, Giannakopoulos sounds pretty out there. A EuroLeague club, even a giant one, operates on a completely different financial planet than the NBA. There's no realistic number Panathinaikos could offer that gets within shouting distance of what Denver is already paying him, let alone what's coming next. Because here's the twist that makes Jokic's side of this so strategic. He's not delaying his next contract out of indecision. He's delaying it because the calendar itself is worth more money than committing early. Right now, he became eligible to sign a 4-year, $278 million max extension in June, but has declined to commit, and the reason is pure business. If he waits one more year, Jokic will become eligible to sign a 5-year, $359.5 million extension with the Nuggets in July 2027, a contract that would be the largest in NBA history. Let that number breathe for a second. $359.5 million. Over 5 years. The single richest contract any basketball player has ever signed in any league, on any continent. And Jokic is choosing to wait for it, rather than lock in the smaller number sitting in front of him right now. That's not a guy hedging toward Europe. That's a guy who's done the math on staying in Denver and realized patience is worth tens of millions more. Compare that to what a rival superstar just did to set the market. Boston recently inked Jason Tatum to the largest contract in NBA history, a 5-year extension worth $314 million. That was the number to beat. Jokic's projected deal doesn't just beat it, it clears it by more than $40 million. Jokic can only extend for 4 years right now, due to the number of years he's played, which is exactly why there's a world where he waits another year before signing, allowing him to add 1 more year of guaranteed money. Every extra month Jokic waits is a calculated bet that Denver, and the rising NBA salary cap, will keep making him richer than signing early ever could. That future contract would see his career on-court earnings reach $724 million, according to ESPN NBA front office insider Bobby Marks. $724 million. That's the ceiling Jokic is patiently climbing toward. Compare that to what Giannakopoulos was reportedly offering to buy out a single remaining season, and you start to understand why Denver's answer took, in Giannakopoulos' own words, only a few seconds. There's a piece of this that Denver's front office has been careful not to spin publicly, though. Nuggets president Josh Kroenke promised that the team will offer Jokic a contract extension, though he couldn't guarantee if the three-time NBA MVP would accept the offer or not. That's an admission buried inside a promise. Denver will make the offer. Denver cannot promise Jokic signs it on their preferred timeline. That small window of uncertainty, even while everyone agrees Jokic isn't going to Greece, is exactly the window Giannakopoulos is trying to squeeze himself into with every podcast appearance. And it's not just about Jokic's number, it's about what's happening around him on the roster. Because Denver's summer wasn't just about one contract. It's been a relatively quiet start to free agency for the Nuggets, as the team has not yet reached agreements with restricted free agents Peyton Watson or Spencer Jones, though Denver did sign guard Tyus Jones and center Marvin Bagley III to new deals, but lost Tim Hardaway Jr. to the Miami Heat. That's a front office managing a dozen smaller fires, while the biggest name on the roster sits on a decision worth hundreds of millions. And in the middle of all that roster juggling, a European owner picked exactly this moment to publicly announce he's coming for the guy holding the whole thing together. The financial gap between an NBA supermax and a European buyout isn't close. It's not competitive. It's not even really a negotiation in any real sense of the word. But the fact that the offer got made at all, out loud, on a podcast that reached basketball media on 2 continents, that's what forced the NBA world to actually react instead of ignore it. And react. They did. Once the story broke wide, this stopped being a quiet front office matter and turned into one of the loudest off-season conversations in the NBA. And the reaction wasn't measured. It ranged from disbelief to outright ridicule. And it came from basically every corner of the basketball media ecosystem at once. Start with how Denver's own beat coverage framed it. One outlet didn't hold back on how absurd the entire premise sounded once you strip away the theater. It's borderline ridiculous this is even making headlines. Nikola Jokic has committed to the Nuggets over and over again and has never expressed any desire to play in Europe. The same piece went further, pointing out the financial reality nobody could argue with. He can think that. But unfortunately for him, Denver and the rest of the NBA is laughing. There's nothing to see here. Nikola Jokic is not going to play basketball in Greece anytime soon, most likely ever. That's about as blunt a dismissal as you'll see in sports journalism. And it wasn't an outlier opinion, it was close to the consensus. National NBA reporters treated the story with a similar mix of fascination and disbelief. One widely shared breakdown called out just how one-sided the entire situation actually was, framing Denver's fast rejection as the real headline. It's stunning that the Nuggets weren't interested in letting a 3-time MVP walk away for nothing, but a contract buyout, a truly shocking development. That's sarcasm doing the heavy lifting, but it captures exactly how the league's reporting class processed this. As something almost too bold to be taken at face value, yet too specific with named agents, specific seasons, specific dollar figures to fully dismiss either. Even outlets that treated the pursuit seriously as a story still landed on the same conclusion about how it ends. One report laid out the practical reality bluntly. Jokic is still just 31 and remains a perennial MVP candidate. And he will have the opportunity to sign a $359.5 million deal with Denver next summer. He has no incentive to leave the NBA, be it financial or from a competitive standpoint. The Nuggets probably won't lose any sleep over this potential threat. That's the shape the reaction took across nearly every major outlet that covered it. Acknowledge the offer was real. Acknowledge Giannakopoulos wasn't joking, and then land on the same place. This isn't happening, but it's still worth talking about because of who's involved and how loudly it was said. And that's really the core of why this became such a big offseason story instead of a footnote. It wasn't really about whether Jokic leaves. Nobody serious believed that. It was about the fact that an NBA superstar's contract situation had become porous enough, for one calculated financial reason, that an outside league owner felt emboldened to make a play at all, and to do it publicly, repeatedly, on the record, naming Jokic's actual agent and describing an actual phone call. That's not normal. Teams don't usually get international buyout offers for active franchise cornerstones. The fact that Denver had to publicly bat this away, even dismissively, is itself unusual enough to explain the volume of the reaction. Add to that the fact that this wasn't an isolated flashpoint in Jokic's relationship with basketball's ownership class. Just months earlier, Jokic had been in a physical tension-filled moment with another NBA owner entirely, Phoenix's Matt Ishbia. During a playoff game, after Jokic was given a technical for elbowing a fan who turned out to be sitting courtside as an owner rather than an ordinary spectator, Jokic didn't hold back afterward, pointedly questioning why the league would protect an owner-turned-fan over a player. "He is a fan, isn't he?" Jokic questioned. "Sitting on the court, he's a fan, isn't he?" Put those two moments side by side, months apart, and you get a stretch of Jokic's career, where NBA ownership, first an owner sitting courtside affecting a game, then an owner overseas trying to affect his entire career, kept inserting itself into his story in ways no other superstar was dealing with at the same time. That's part of why this particular offseason story landed with extra weight. It wasn't the first time in recent memory that an owner, somewhere, had made Jokic's basketball life more complicated than it needed to be. None of that changed the outcome here. Denver still said no in seconds. Jokic still said he wants to be a Nugget forever. But the noise around both moments, the fast, almost dismissive way front offices and players had to publicly bat away owner-driven distractions, is exactly why this story didn't fade quietly into an off-season news cycle. It kept getting shared, kept getting quoted, kept getting reacted to, because it tapped into something bigger than one podcast appearance. The sense that Jokic, for one reason or another, keeps ending up at the center of drama, initiated by people who own teams rather than play for them. And Giannakopoulos wasn't backing down from any of it. If anything, the reaction seemed to embolden him further. So where does this actually leave things? Because for as loud as the reaction got, the facts on the ground didn't move an inch. Jokic is still a Denver Nugget. He's still owed tens of millions of dollars this season alone. And he still says in his own words that he wants to finish his career exactly where he started it in the NBA. But the door Giannakopoulos is pointing at hasn't closed. It's just closed for now. Giannakopoulos made it clear that he will pursue Jokic again once he is a free agent, and told the podcast hosts to call Jokic's agent, Misko Raznatovic, and ask whether he really made a serious proposal this summer. That's not the language of a man moving on. That's the language of a man circling a calendar date and waiting. And the calendar date that matters is next summer, the moment Jokic's player option decision actually has to get made, one way or another. If he declines that option and still hasn't signed an extension, he walks into unrestricted free agency as arguably the best player alive, with Denver holding no exclusive claim on him beyond whatever loyalty and history buys them. That's the scenario Giannakopoulos is explicitly building his entire plan around. Realistically, almost nobody in the league believes that ends with Jokic in a Panathinaikos jersey. The money isn't close. The competitive stakes aren't close. And Jokic's own words haven't wavered once. But the fact that the scenario exists at all, that there's a real, if vanishingly small, calendar window where Jokic could be an unrestricted free agent, with a European bidder already on record making offers, is what keeps this story alive instead of letting it die quietly after one news cycle. Denver, for its part, isn't sitting still either. The front office has already signaled its intentions publicly, promising the extension will come. Kroenke promised that the team will offer Jokic a contract extension, while speaking during media availability. The expectation across the league is that Denver makes its move. The moment the calendar allows the bigger number, that 5-year, $359.5 million offer, to actually go on the table. Nobody around the Nuggets organization believes there's a real fight to be had for Jokic's signature. The fight, if there is one, is about timing and patience, not loyalty. Meanwhile, the roster around Jokic keeps shifting in ways that only add more weight to how much Denver needs this resolved cleanly. Losing Valanciunas to Zalgiris, watching Tim Hardaway Jr. leave for Miami, still working through restricted free agency with Peyton Watson. All of it is happening while the single most important contract decision in franchise history sits unsigned. Every roster move this summer has effectively been made in the shadow of Jokic's eventual answer. And Giannakopoulos hasn't gone quiet either. If anything, the more the story spread, the more he leaned into it, repeating on multiple podcast platforms and interviews that this remains his defining ambition as an owner, one he compares to chasing legends of the European game before Jokic ever became his target. Before landing on Jokic as his ultimate pursuit, Giannakopoulos spoke of his long-standing admiration for former playmaker Milos Teodosic, ranking him among the smartest and most multi-talented players to ever grace the sport. That's a man who thinks in terms of legacy signings, not quick wins, which is exactly why nobody expects him to let this go quietly, even after getting turned down twice. There's also the matter of his own standing in his own league right now, serving suspensions and paying fines for conduct that has nothing to do with Jokic at all, but everything to do with how he operates as an owner who doesn't pull punches, publicly or privately. That temperament is precisely why this offer got made the way it did. Loudly, on the record, without a hint of concern for how outlandish it sounded to people outside his own head. For Jokic, none of this seems to register as pressure. He spent his whole career being underestimated, drafted 41st overall, written off by nearly every scouting department in the league, and turning that into 3 MVPs and a championship. A billionaire's public campaign to buy him out of a contract he's not trying to leave is, by comparison, background noise. His answer hasn't changed since the story broke, and there's no indication it's going to change. Between now and whenever his actual decision comes due, what's left then isn't a mystery about where Jokic ends up. It's a countdown to the summer when his option decision actually has to be made, when Denver's supermax offer actually lands on the table, and when Giannakopoulos either shows up with a number nobody expects or fades into the same footnote his Valanciunas pursuit became before it. Either way, the NBA world will be watching that calendar date closely, because for one strange offseason, an owner from another continent made enough noise that the league had to answer him.